This episode, I'm going to do the bearing preload, put the carrier back into the rear end. I just wanted to go over a few things here. There's a few things I've done since episode 3, or part 3, and that was cleaning all the covers, this off. I even took this one, got all the gasket material off. I didn't really video that, but pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty simple. I just used a scraper, went through here, scraped off all the old gasket material. This was gasket material. This was pretty hard to get off, some of it. This cap here, the top cover had like a corked gasket. That was pretty simple. It came off. After I took all that off, I just wire wheeled everything. This usually cleans up everything real well, even up top here. Now I did put rags and stuff down in here and in here to catch all the debris that I could when you're cleaning this. That way you don't have a bunch of stuff, especially getting down into your differential. There is a filter in there, so it's not a huge deal, but still trying to keep as much dirt and debris out of there as what you can is, good. After I did that, I went over this with some fine, like 220 grit sandpaper, just to try to get every bit of that gasket material off as I could. And then I just sprayed some brake parts cleaner on some rags and wiped everything down. Now, before I put the RTV on, I'm going to go back through with brake parts cleaner and, clean everything up really good before I put the sealant on. So, a couple other things since the last time we did this. I did another video before. It was fine spline axles in a 2-piece carrier and a regular one. Same almost procedure. This one I'm going a little more detail. On that video, I used 2x4s like this when I pounded out the rivets on the ring gear. Now, by using 2x4s or 4x4 posts, it keeps the bottom bearing up off the ground. You don't have to worry. I'm starting to think the 2x4s worked better than this, and I'm going to tell you why. When I did it with the 2x4s in the last video, I pounded closer to the 2x4. Like I said, I don't want to put too much stress. Pressing it out might work better, but when I did it with the 4x4 post, everything went fine. But as in part 3, you could see on the one ring gear, fortunately it wasn't the one I needed. It was the one that came off the Cub Cadet rear end. It popped out and all the rivets were left in the ring gear. I didn't have that problem with the previous one. I don't know if it was just a fluke or what happened, but if that happens with the ring gear you need, it's going to be a pain to get them rivets out when it pops out of there. So I was just letting you guys know this might be a better way to go on that. Another thing that I discovered is originally when I put this together, I put this whole thing together. You can't do that. You have to have the 2 pieces in 2 pieces. And the reason is this carrier is too large. It will not fit into the rear end. So you have to have this apart. And I remembered this then when I did the other one as well. You put this in the carrier or the rear end, and then I'll put this in, and then I had to bolt it up while it's in there. It's not a big deal, but I just wanted to let you guys know if you don't Loctite this up and then try to put it in there, it's just going to save you a step. Now, I did say in part 3 that I was going to flush this out with kerosene, and I didn't do that. I got everything pretty clean. I'm really happy with it, and all I did is I went in here, put some solvent on a rag, and just went through and cleaned everything with shop towels really good and tried getting all the dirt and grime out of there, and I got it really clean. And the reason why I didn't want to put a lot of kerosene and stuff in there is because with this intake tube here and everything, I didn't want a chance to dilute my oil when I put this in here or having any residue left. So I started to clean it with the rags at first, and it came out so well, it worked pretty nice. So I just wanted to let you know that originally I was going to use kerosene, but I didn't. So now let me get this set up. We're going to put the 2-piece carrier in there, get this bolted together. I'll put the bearing races or the caps on, and that's where these shims come in. We're going to set the bearing preload and then go ahead and use the Prussian blue dye, and we'll set the ring gear to the pinion to make sure we're getting the right tooth pattern. Let me get set up and we'll get started. Alright, before I put it in, I removed the outer piece of the 2-piece. I also removed this. It goes in a lot easier, as you can see, just like that. And then from the outer hole here, I'll take this gear slide it in and hold it, and then you have to finesse this in right around there like that, and then we'll get it all lined up, everything in here, and then you just have to bolt it through the outside. So it's a little pain bolting it up, but then once we get it bolted up, we'll go ahead and put the outer caps on and everything, get everything shimmed up. Like I said, I am using the orange Loctite. It's easier to get off with thread tools, but it holds a little stronger in the blue, so that's what I've been using. So let me get this set up and in here, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I got the carrier in there. I got the two pieces bolted together. I put the one outer cap on, and what I normally do with these is I'm just going to put it on. Both of them, I took the shims out, and I just want to sort of see what everything looks like and lines up when I get these on without any shims, and then I'll move this back and forth and sort of, you know, see how much play I have and then where I need to go from there. So I'm just going to finger tighten them, put them on, go from there, and then I'll just keep shimming as I go and try to get this thing as perfect as I can. Alright, it's been a couple weeks now. I had to cut this video. I went to do the bearing preload, and I put the outer caps on with the races, and what I like to do is with no shims, just put them on and, you know, test where I'm at to see how I'm at. And I put them on, and it was all sloppy back and forth. So with no shims, I couldn't get this tight, and I couldn't figure it out because I did the other video where I did the fine spline with the, you know, the cast iron, and I used the same cast iron caps and everything worked perfect. So I started to get a little nervous. I'm thinking, how come it's not working on this one when it's still a two-piece carrier? Well, the problem I ran into is, you see the aluminum ones that I took out of the 1864 with the 30mm. Well, come to find out, they are just a tad bit, the bearing races are a tad bit longer on them. They protrude out a little bit. So this is what makes these videos nice, guys. I don't know everything. You know, like I said, I'm first for me doing this, so by watching these videos, that's how you learn. Hopefully this makes it easier from someone else. The problem was with these aluminum caps here, the ends, I put them in a parts box because I didn't get rid of them. I was going to keep them just in case, and you know, that's a good thing. And I had to keep these. I couldn't find them, so it took me a few days, and then by then I've been busy with work and stuff, and I hadn't had time to work on this. So the aluminum ones do not go in here as easy as the cast iron. Now, I would really prefer to have the cast iron ones in here. I still think the cast iron's stronger than aluminum, but I don't think it's really going to matter. So what I did is I put them in without any shims, and it's too tight. It pushes up against the pinion. So now what I'm going to do is take this off, and it gives me an idea of how many shims I'm going to need, and then I'll start to shim this for the preload. I would like to say, when you put these aluminum ones in, you're going to have to put them up in there, and then very gently, and when I say gently, just tap around them like this with a small hammer. Just, they'll go in there, they go in a little tighter when they start to go in, and then they pop in. Unlike the cast iron ones, they go in a little easier. And then when you're doing this, a little pry bar or something, just go around it a little bit, and it helps pull these out, and you can just pull them out that way. That's what I've been doing when I've been testing these out, playing with them here a little bit. Seems to work pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start adding my shims, get the preload set, and then we'll try to get a good contact pattern once I think I got it right, and we'll go from there. Alright, I popped the aluminum one out just to show you guys. As you can see, they're the same depth. It's just the bearing is a deeper cup in this one than it is this one. I don't get why. It's just enough. This one's in recessed in there just a tad bit more. And I mean, when I mean a tad bit, you're talking like a couple shims worth. but it's just enough to make it slop back and forth, just enough you can't get a good preload on it. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna keep adding some shims here. I'll try to get that on, and then we'll put the gear compound on and make sure we got good depth. All right, now this part of the video was a little harder to do because I couldn't really show you the contact pattern and do it with the camera. It was just too slow. But I buy these brushes here. You can get them at the Dollar Tree for like $1 for a whole pack of them. I throw them in the toolbox. Here's the gear compound, Persian Blue by Permatex, and this flashlight's probably gonna not pick it up, but I got the preload set, and then I put that stuff on the gears for the pattern. Now, like I said, the flashlight's not gonna pick it up, but I turn this around back and forth, and the contact pattern is right about in the center. I wish the light would pick it up, guys, it's not. So I turned it back and forth, and how I turn this, because this is a hydro unit, not a gear, is I use this and I put it on the gear and I just push down to get some leverage back and forth and use it that way. So it's not going to hurt nothing. Press it on that gear. I just use that to push back and forth, and that's what made it turn back to see my contact pattern. I'm pretty happy with that pattern. It's better to do this with a load, but with a hydro unit it's just a little difficult. But at the end of the day, it's a lawnmower, it's a garden tractor. I'm not going to use this every single day, not that I don't want it done right, but everything looks good to me. I got it shimmed, everything seems well, it's perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and pull each one of these bolts out, and I'm going to throw a little bit of just orange or blue Loctite on them. I'm going to clean the bolts, Loctite them, put them on, and then we'll get everything sealed up and put back together here. Alright, got the ring gear meshed with the pinion gear. So now the last and final step is putting all the covers on, sealing everything up. You can either go to Cub Cadet and you can buy the paper gasket set and all that stuff for all of this, but this is what I've been using on everything. I buy the Permatex. This is a transfer case differential stuff. It's the gray gasket maker. I've used it on some other Cub Cadets. I just think this works better. It's a little more of a pain to take off because it sort of glues it on, but I can guarantee you you'll have a less chance of a leak with this than you will buying the gaskets. Not to mention, this was $10. I don't know what a gasket set would cost, but it'd be a lot more than $10. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not really going to show this in the video. I'm going to take some brake wash, brakes part cleaner, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to spray this on a rag. I'm going to go around here. I'm going to wipe both sides down of each piece that I'm putting the gasket maker on. I'm going to clean this really good. Make sure your hands are clean, free of grease and everything. And then once I get it on, I'm going to push this on. I'm going to put the bolts on. I'm going to try to tighten them as tight as I can get them with my fingers. Okay, so I figured on finishing this up. It was getting late, so I did it here in the morning. I got the axle tubes on and the top cover. I got the gasket maker on that. The left tube, the one that was machined down up in here, it is really low. There's a little valley there, so when you put that on, you have to make sure to get the gasket maker down further. So I'd put some on the axle tube itself, and then I push some down in there, and then I'll cut and scrape some of this excess off so it don't look terrible, but it will seal, it will be fine, but it doesn't give you much room there. That's just part of the cast iron with the aluminum, so you got to deal with it. I put the brake mounting hardware back on. I just cleaned them up real good, got all the grease and everything off them. I'm going to go ahead and slide the axles back in, and then I got this positioned, the carrier, where you can access it there, and I'll put the retainer clips in, and then once I get the axles all in place and everything in there, I'll go ahead and put the rear cover on. Okay, so I got the retainer clips in place. I got some light here on you to see it. The best way to do this, the easiest way, is to have a head-mounted lamp or something, or a really good light to be able to see down in there. So the axles are all in place, everything's back together. Let me just put this rear cover on and button it up. Alright, so everything's back on all together. I'll let this dry probably 72 hours or more. The directions say 24 hours, then you go back and then you tighten all the bolts back up. But generally, I give it a few days because with this rear end being all sealed up now, it might not get as dry in the inside. So I'm not in no hurry. I'm pretty patient. So about 3 days from now, I'll go through and then I'll just tighten all these bolts up. Other than that, I'll get this degreased and get it ready to be painted and cleaned up good, and then I still have to drill and tap the input shaft there for the coupler for the CVC joint. But I think it turned out pretty good. Everything looks fine. Definitely beefier than the original. Looks pretty cool with them axle tubes on there. So alright, so the 30mm axle swap is done, complete. I finished tightening up all the bolts tonight. It's been about 4 days since I put the RTV gasket on there, and I like to leave it sit. Like I said previously, I like to let it cure good before I go ahead and tighten everything down. One of the last videos when I did this, someone asked me the torque specs. I believe it's 35 foot-pounds is what you're supposed to torque these at. I'm not sure on the axle tubes. It's probably close to the same. I usually don't use a torque wrench. I just tighten them up to what, feels well, tighten them real tight. If I'm working on an engine, I'll use torque specs, but on like a cover like this, I don't think it really matters too much. But if you wanted to torque them, 35 foot-pounds, you can go ahead and cut all this off when you're done if you want. It'd make it look prettier. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it on here because when I paint this, you're never going to notice that there's going to be a 3-point hitch cover on the back. I'm not too worried about it. Plus, it gives a better seal to make sure nothing ever leaks. You can use the paper gaskets. I've been switching all over to this on when I'm done. And I'll tell you the advantage of the RTV compared to the paper gaskets real quick. The paper gaskets, if you ever have to remove this cover, a lot of times you can pull them back off. If they're not too old, they don't rip. You can reuse them. If you pull the cover off with this, you have to redo the gasket material. But I have found you usually won't have any leaks with the gasket material, where with the paper gaskets, generally they're going to leak. I don't know why. You start pulling on the hitches and stuff, they just drip and seep. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I didn't have a chance to power wash it yet. I'm going to save that for another video. I don't want to make this too longer than it already is. So the next couple days I'm going to I'll make another video. I'm going to clean this up real well, and then we'll put it in the tractor, see what it looks like, make sure it fits. I hope this video is informational. Guys, I'm not a professional. This was the first 30mm axle swap I've ever done. I just went along with you. I showed you some of the things where I messed up on and some of the things to do. Anyone can tackle this. This stuff's pretty easy, as you can see. If I missed anything, or anyone out there that does these that has any tips or tricks to share with anyone, I strongly urge you to comment below. I appreciate it. It helps everyone out, even myself, if I do another one of these. Like I said, I hope this video helped, and thanks for watching.